Okay, so Shedeur Sanders about to go throw for throw, play for play with Deshaun Watson. Let's get it in. May the best man win, and I believe it will be Shedeur Sanders.
The energy in Cleveland is already boiling before a single full-contact snap of OTAs has even happened, and yet the conversation has somehow jumped straight into the deepest end of the quarterback battle. There's tension in the air that you can feel even through reports, leaks, and national TV debates, because every update about the Cleveland Browns feels less like football analysis and more like a public argument nobody fully agrees on. And right now, the name sitting at the center of it all is Shedeur Sanders, a rookie walking into a room that already has a former Pro Bowl quarterback in Deshaun Watson and a coaching staff trying to rebuild identity under Todd Monken. The talk is simple on the surface, but heavy underneath. Who is actually QB1 right now? And more importantly, who is the organization really leaning toward behind closed doors? Here's the part nobody is talking about. This isn't just a quarterback competition. It's a perception war being shaped by limited information. The Cleveland Browns are running OTAs with no live contact, just 7-on-7, 9-on-9, and 11-on-11 drills, which means nobody outside the building is seeing full truth, only fragments. Yet those fragments are already being turned into narratives. Rookie minicamp gave a glimpse, veteran sessions gave another, and now everything is being stitched together by reporters like Mary Kay Cabot and national voices like Jeremy Fowler. But the reality is simple. No one is watching every rep. So what looks like QB1 trending might just be selective visibility. And still, the buzz around Shedeur Sanders keeps growing, because every clip, every report, every small detail seems to feed the idea that he is not just participating, he's competing like he belongs at the top of the depth chart.
All eyes will be on the quarterback, the rep rotations, whether it's been changed from the voluntary minicamp that we saw a month ago. Rookies now will be blended in with the veterans who volunteer to be out there.
What makes this even more intense is the timing. OTAs are the first real moment where the entire roster is finally on the field together under new head coach energy and offensive direction. Todd Monken is finally seeing his full quarterback room operate in real time, not just in meetings or individual workouts. And according to reports from the Cleveland Browns organization coverage, this is the first true evaluation phase, where rookies and veterans share the same field structure. That matters because it removes excuses and isolates performance. No pads, no full contact, just decision-making, timing, accuracy, and leadership. And in that environment, Shedeur Sanders is reportedly not just keeping up, but actively pushing the pace of the room. Now here's where the debate gets loud. Deshaun Watson, he is not just any quarterback in this competition. He's the most expensive, most experienced, and most controversial name in the room. He's also the player many assumed would automatically be the leader by default. But early OTA discussion is not presenting that as a settled fact. Instead, insiders and analysts are carefully wording their updates, saying things like Watson is working with Monken's system and building chemistry, which sounds positive but not dominant. And that's where fans start splitting, because if Watson is supposed to be QB1, why does every conversation feel like it still needs confirmation?
They've been talking about it nonstop, and now there's speculations whether or not it's a clue that Shedeur is going to be the starter, because during the schedule release, in the video, no signs of Deshaun Watson.
At the same time, Shedeur Sanders is walking into a completely different narrative lane. He doesn't have the contract pressure, he doesn't have the organizational baggage, he doesn't have years of expectation already locked in. So every rep he takes is viewed through a different lens, either as proof of potential or as hype getting ahead of reality. And that's why OTAs are so critical for him. He's not just learning the playbook, he's trying to reshape perception in real time. And when reports suggest he is leading the way in early installs or standing out in situational drills, it instantly becomes headline fuel. Here's where it gets dangerous, because once OTA narratives start forming, they rarely come from full evidence. They come from selective reporting, short clips, and controlled environments where coaches are still experimenting. Jeremy Fowler's comments on SportsCenter added even more fuel to the fire, pointing out that Watson has looked comfortable and Monken's system has elements he's familiar with. On paper, that sounds like stability for Watson, but the reaction from fans has been mixed because it doesn't translate to dominance, it translates to familiarity, and familiarity in OTAs doesn't always mean separation.
Quote unquote, this is on Deshaun Watson. I'm told he's hit it off with Todd Monken, who's got an offensive concept, some elements that Watson has run in the past and been his best at.
Meanwhile, internal media discussions have turned into something more emotional than analytical. Local and national voices are openly debating how much weight should even be placed on OTA performances when access is limited and live reps are restricted. One of the biggest frustrations expressed is that fans are being asked to form conclusions without full information, and that frustration is only amplified when reporters present updates that are based on limited viewing windows. It creates a loop where fans are reacting to reactions instead of football itself. And in that loop, Shedeur Sanders becomes either the rising storyline or the overhyped distraction, depending on who you ask. The Browns' quarterback room itself is now being described as one of the most confusing in the NFL, not because of talent alone, but because of alignment. Some analysts question how the organization ended up here. Multiple quarterbacks, different timelines, different expectations, and no clean consensus direction. Even discussions around previous coaching decisions under Kevin Stefanski have resurfaced, with critics wondering whether quarterback development was ever fully stable in the first place. And when you layer Todd Monken into this, suddenly the entire structure feels like it's being rebuilt while still in motion.
Mary Kay doesn't know. Mary Kay doesn't know, and it also tips the hand that the execs, the marketing team, looks at this team and looks at Shedeur as the guy. That is the guy that sells the tickets. That's the guy where you think of the Browns, you think of who the quarterback is.
And then there's the emotional divide inside the fan base. Some fans are already over the Deshaun Watson situation entirely. Others are skeptical of Shedeur Sanders' hype, believing it's being amplified too quickly. And another group is simply waiting for anything concrete before committing to a stance. That's why every OTA report feels bigger than it should be, because there is no shared baseline of trust. Everyone is reading the same situation through a different lens, and that's why even simple updates turn into arguments online. This is where young players usually make a mistake, when attention comes faster than stability. For Shedeur Sanders, the challenge isn't just execution, it's managing expectation without letting narrative pressure dictate performance. Every throw in OTAs becomes symbolic. Every rep gets interpreted as leadership or regression. But in reality, OTA football is still installation football. It's about timing, communication, and system adaptation more than raw quarterback ranking. The danger is believing early noise equals long-term truth.
There's a large contingent of Browns fans who are over the Shedeur thing, in no small part because of the Shahive. There's a large contingent of Browns fans who are well over the Deshaun thing because, see notes for the Deshaun thing.
What makes Monken's role so critical here is that he's not just evaluating talent, he's building identity. Reports suggest he's already developing rapport with Watson and integrating concepts that fit his strengths. But he's also seeing how younger quarterbacks respond to structure and complexity. And that includes Shedeur Sanders, who has reportedly shown strong communication and adaptation in early sessions. But again, everything is happening in controlled environments. Nothing is finalized, nothing is separated yet. And still, the story keeps drifting toward competition, because whether intended or not, the narrative is forming a two-lane race, veteran stability versus rookie momentum. Watson represents experience and expectation, Sanders represents uncertainty and upside, and Monken represents the decision point between the two. That's why every OTA update feels loaded. It's not just reporting practice, it's indirectly forecasting the future of the franchise direction. Now zoom out and the bigger legacy question starts to appear. The Browns are not just trying to evaluate quarterbacks, they are trying to stabilize identity at the most important position in football. Years of inconsistency, coaching changes, and roster reshuffling have created an environment where even small signs of clarity feel magnified. So when a rookie like Shedeur Sanders shows flashes of command, it doesn't just get noticed, it gets amplified into possibility. And when Watson shows comfort and system familiarity, it gets framed as either expected or insufficient depending on perspective. At the end of the day, OTAs are not where jobs are officially won, but they are where perception begins to harden. And right now, perception is split. Some see Watson as still holding the top spot by default, others see Sanders as pushing into the conversation earlier than expected. And the truth sits somewhere in the middle, still forming, still incomplete, still waiting for training camp to force real separation. And that's why this situation is already explosive before real football even starts. Because the Browns don't just have a quarterback battle, they have a narrative battle, a trust battle, and a future direction battle happening all at once. And once training camp arrives, those early OTA impressions will either be validated or completely rewritten. But for now, all eyes stay locked in Cleveland, because whether people want to admit it or not, Shedeur Sanders is already in the conversation. And in this league, being in the conversation this early is never accidental.